begin, I want to thank you all for attending this, and it has pertinence at this particular time, certainly with the new administration coming in the United States and the changes that this might make to the trade compliance community. And in that sense, with the changes to ACE and the new administration, we believe that there will be certainly accelerated changes taking place that the trade compliance community will have to answer to. With that being said, I'd like to introduce Dana, and I'm not going to read Dana's bio, it speaks for itself, but Dana is certainly an expert in this area, and she has many, many years of trade compliance experience. Equally important to her expertise across industries is the fact that Dana is just a wonderful person to work with. She is a very upbeat person, and she's able to share her expertise and is willing to share her expertise very generously with anyone who is interested in understanding the importance of trade compliance. With that being said, I want to thank you for attending this third wave webinar. We have undertaken to host what we believe are meaningful topics throughout the year, and we hope that you will join us as we present these educational webinars. With that being said, Dana, let me pass it over to you.
Thank you, Ned. I really appreciate that, and those are really kind words. Yes, to Ned's point, I am certainly happy to help, and that's certainly the intent of today's webinar. We really want to reach out to the community, and as evolution happens with global trade, we want to provide as much assistance as possible with the information and the solutions that are out there. So with that said, I'll kick it off. The things that we'll be going over are outlined here. We've obviously got the safe harbor statement. In general, global trade responsibility and ownership, automation today, and the automation around the ACE portal and the changes as well as best practices, pros and cons of automation, and then Q&A. With regards to the safe harbor statement, it speaks for itself. The presentation will be it is publicly available data and does give some visibility to our forward thinking and looking perception, as well as general information, which you'll all get a copy of. So global trade responsibility and ownership. I would say that that's probably one of the biggest challenges out there for identification of ownership and responsibility as well as liability. So with that said, it is always a common question who ultimately has responsibility. And the bottom line is everyone does. There's a lot of parties involved with global trade compliance. It's not just limited to an importer or an exporter or the shippers or the brokers. There's a lot of people. There's banks, there's finance companies, freight forwarders, government officials, sellers, buyers. This is not an all-inclusive list, but certainly it gives some visibility to some of the parties to a transaction. But the bottom line is no one's immune to responsibility and their digestion and exercising of the global trade compliance regulations. So essentially when you're engaged in business, both domestic and foreign, we all have to take heed warnings and understand what our obligations are. So this is just kind of a general visual of a great list of different trade compliance areas focus. A lot of them in general can be overwhelming. And when you look at this, it is an overwhelming viewpoint, to be honest. When you first get into trade compliance, you start to typically learn about one or more of these things, and you generally focus on one area, whether it be imports or exports. I myself started off with imports and did many years of imports before jumping into exports. Just in general, this is a highlight of regulations and responsibilities. We do have some sightings at the bottom of the page with regards to regulatory responsibilities. They're certainly not all of them again. This is just to help give people some point of reference as to this is not just some pie in the sky, everybody should be a good guy. It is very clearly dictated in the regulations by the government entities and a grand majority of agencies as to all parties having responsibility.